The way that this relates to the agenda is that the agenda is also organized in blocks. And just like I had the custom block for, just like I had the custom block for the payment button, I have custom blocks for roles that would appear on the agenda and notes to appear on the agenda. So I call the agenda notes sort of the equivalent of stage directions for your meeting. Those are the things that say, here we do a round of self-introductions and we allow 10 minutes on the agenda for it. So you can specify things like that. So when I'm logged in here and I have administrative rights, one of the things I should see over to the right is a listing of things that I can do as an administrator of this site. So it's telling me that I can add a new blog post, or I can see a listing of them. Same thing for the pages, same thing for the events, and also the event templates. So the templates is one of the more important concepts here. I compare it to the cookie and the cookie cutter. The cookie cutter lets you stamp out identical cookies, but we also want to be able to decorate those cookies differently for the different events. And let's see. Actually, to show this properly, I should go over to my May 3rd site. So this is just starting out site. There's a number of prompts here telling me to mess around with different settings. So I am trying to guide you through that process. And here is where you would go in to add your club members, which I showed a little bit earlier in the CAN presentation. If we go into the Toastmasters meeting event, let's see, actually what I want to do is I want to edit this template. So these are the agenda notes that I mentioned. So it's saying that we're taking 2 minutes on the agenda for the Sergeant of Arms to open the meeting, and then 3 minutes. That doesn't sound like enough for self-introductions. We have roles then mapped out. So this is the role component. And one of my roles is Toastmaster of the Day. Count is 1 because we only have 1 Toastmaster of the day per meeting. And he's allowed 3 minutes to introduce himself. So we're actually trying to map out both the agenda and the sign-up form at the same time to some extent, which does make it a little bit complicated, but I'm doing it for good, with good intentions. And then if we say wanted to add an additional role, if you click if you hover your mouse between any of these things, you'll see a little plus button. And again, the plus buttons mean let's add something to the agenda. I'm going to say I want to add a new role. And this is going to be a custom role called Chat Monitor. And we only need 1 of them. And I'll update that. And as soon as I update something on the template, I'll get this prompt up top saying, would you like to create a new event based on the template, which would be creating a single event? Or do you want to create a whole series of events? Well, we've set this up saying that we're going to meet every Monday at 6:30 p.m. So probably what we want to do is create a whole series of these events. Now, the software calculates what the every Monday dates are coming up. And, you know, maybe this is a holiday, and so I'm going to uncheck that one. But all the rest of these, I want to go ahead and set up. And so we can just add them as a batch. So I can go out and view any of these, and I can see my basic structure here defined by the template. I could sign up for a role right now. And I could also decide that for this particular meeting, you know what, we're going to have election of officers at the beginning, so we can only have 3 speakers instead of 2. We're not going to have time for our usual format. And so I need to go in here and find this. I'll say 3 speakers. And I expect that to take up about 15 minutes on the agenda. And if we only have 2 speakers instead of 3, we can also have 2 evaluators, and that's also going to take up a little bit less time. And we can update that and see our changes. So now we have an agenda with 2 speakers plus a backup speaker and 2 evaluators. One thing that I probably should have covered earlier is how you move things around too, because the default template may not be correct for the way you organize your meetings. So if I wanted to do the self-introductions, well, this doesn't really make sense, but if I want to move the self-introductions up the front even before we open our meeting, I can move things up and down using these up and down arrows. And it would be the same thing for moving the Toastmaster of the Day block farther up on the agenda. So, again, we can save that. And we would see Toastmaster of the Day followed by those notes. These notes actually are only supposed to appear on the agenda, not on the sign-up form, but I've got a little technical issue that I'm dealing with there. And then I mentioned we have the print, we have the email off the agenda. Show means I'm just going to show it on screen. I mean, if I do print here, it'll automatically try and start my printer. For online meetings, I don't actually usually print it. I just want to see it on screen. And there is an export to Microsoft Word, which is in there partly as sort of a quick and dirty hack for people who don't know how to edit the agenda or aren't confident doing that, to give them a familiar tool. I'm not going to show that to you right this moment. There are also some tools for running contests that I've promoted. I've done some other publicity around those. Oh, no, also, I mentioned the cookie and the cookie cutter earlier. We can go back at any time and make changes to our template. What do we want? We're going to have, from now on, we're going to have 4 speakers at every meeting. So this is, again, this is where we're trying to define what we do most of the time. And we're going to have 4 evaluators. So this time when I go to create or update events, one of the things it shows me is all the events that I created a couple of minutes ago that were based on a slightly different template. So I can check these all off to update them all. It also shows me that this one was modified independently. You know, maybe something special is going on that day. And so maybe I don't want to overwrite that. So I could uncheck that one and then update all the rest. So I said it was the cookie and the cookie cutter, but it is a magic cookie cutter, where even after the cookies have been sent out into the world, You can go back and change the cookie cutter and change all the cookies that were based on that cookie cutter or stamped out with that cookie cutter. And so now these modified ones should have 4 speakers listed instead of 3.